Yeah. Okay, so I've got some questions for you. I've got a few ones that these have brought up that they'd like to ask you as well. So one of the questions that one of the guys have just asked me is, when you've got, for example, the Olympics, and that's maybe 4 years away, how do you maintain that level of focus and belief for that period of time? Or how did you?
I think it's about structuring it and having clarity in what it looks like. So I don't just think, right, okay, in 4 years' time I'm going to go and win the Olympics. I actually work out what do I need to learn to be able to get there? What can I get in place? What does that 4 years look like? You know, it's always about, it's almost like a learning curve. So I would have picked certain races because that would have helped me with the end goal. You know, certain types of training that I would have done, but you know, you just have a bit of a structure and a plan for those 4 years to be able to get to that. And you know that you can't just jump to that 4 years. You have to put this is the hard work. This is the bit that you learn. This is the bit that you have to change as well, because, you know, it's not always that you know everything. It's about changing and adapting, but it's a process that we're going. So, and I always sort of say, I used to always say that, you know, the Olympics was probably like the big dream and the end goal, but there are still goals that need to be set in with it. And I think that's where you have to have that clarity in your mind about what they are, and that's what gives you the confidence to be able to go on to the next thing. So, you know, mine would have been certain races like the Europeans, winning the Europeans beforehand, or the Commonwealths, because that gave me the confidence to say, okay, I can actually, you know, go to the next stage almost.
Yeah, I love that, which leads on to the next question. I just want you to tell us a little bit about what you actually won. So for if there's any of the younger audience that are maybe watching this for the first time and they're not aware of all of your achievements, share with us what you actually achieved through your career.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the biggest and the ultimate is obviously that Olympic gold medal in the 400 hurdles was my event. So that is something that I dreamt about since I was 14 years old, and achieved it when I was 26. So amazing. But I went on from there to win the World Championships the following year, to break a world record whilst doing that World Championships, because that's what it took to win. And then I went on and won the Europeans and the Commonwealth. So still the only woman to hold all 4 major titles at once.
Amazing. I remember I said this to you when you came up, that watching you on TV and being inspired myself of come on, like my grandma and my dad and things, saying this is the British lady, this is the one that we need to win. So massively inspirational for me. One of the other questions which one of the guys wanted me to ask, which you kind of led on to, was visualization, which you kind of touched on there. Do you use that? How important is it if you do?
Yeah, it was the difference of standing at the top of the rostrum and not really. I mean, it was the last, I always say it was the last piece of the jigsaw that I had to learn. I had to learn so many things, but that was sort of like the last piece. And I think I always thought I was quite a good competitor, and I can sort of deal with it on the day. But also I think the thing I learned is that it's, you know, your mind is a massive, powerful tool. And it's about learning to use it. And literally the year before Barcelona, I sort of started working with a sports psychologist, and he just said to me about, you know, you've got to start that mental preparation now. And before that, I would literally have turned up on my bed the night before and gone through it. And he just said, it's not enough time to prepare yourself, to get yourself into that space that you need to do, really. So yeah, and he taught me to think about what it is that you're actually achieving and allowing yourself to. And it was around, how would you celebrate if you won? How would it feel? How would the team feel that has taken you there on that journey? And also, you know, visualizing what the process is. And I think it is about just spending 5 minutes each day, of going through that Olympic race of being sort of like an outer experience, almost watching myself running around that track, watching it from the outside, and how I wanted to execute that race. What was that perfect race? I also practiced about when things might go wrong, so how I would correct it, how I'd get back into it. But it was always about succeeding. It was about crossing the line, winning, achieving what you're trying to strive for, and then how does that make the people around you, and how do you celebrate, and you go past it almost. And I think it is just a massive tool. And by doing that, I think, it only ever happened really twice in my career, is it put me into this space where I went into that race and I just went into the zone. And it is, they actually call it the zone. And I just went into autopilot almost, where it just took over in that race. And I just executed exactly my race and not have to worry about everybody else, which is what I'd done for years. I'd always think, oh gosh, Sandra Farmer's gone off very fast, or somebody's hit a hurdle and your mind's elsewhere. But because I had rehearsed that in my mind, I just went into it, and I don't remember any of that race or the world the following year.
Yeah, really good. How much do you put down a mindset of achieving at the level that you are, at the highest level? How much of it is down to mindset?
I always say that those big races, probably as much as it was 70%. There was people that were better than me, they were stronger than me, they weren't technically better, but they were faster, they were probably stronger. Some of them were cheating. We know that now afterwards, and that's the sort of thing you had to deal with. But what I had above them was that mental strength, and I learned to control that inner voice. And I always say, I think one of the biggest things is that we're always born with that inner voice, that voice which is is the one that's always said, can I really do this? Am I good enough? Is my work as good as that person? And do I deserve this? And everybody has that voice. And if you just keep listening to that voice, and you'll never achieve anything in life. And I think one of the things that I had to learn was that voice is always going to be there, but when it is, you've almost got to stop it. And what the psychologist taught me is that you sort of write it down almost on a piece of paper. You screw it up and you throw it out, and you go, do you know what? I do deserve this, and this is great. And I need to to do this, and I can do it. And it's a powerful tool. It's just about learning to control it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. At what point did you believe you were good enough to go all the way? Can you remember that? Is there a specific time?
Probably only 4 years out from winning Barcelona. I was 5th in an Olympics, and I think coming 5th made me think, there wasn't a lot of difference between, 1st and 5th here. And over 4 years, I can work out what that is, and to be able to do that. So yeah, probably only 4 years out.
Did you have any doubts at any point that maybe you weren't good enough? Was there any injuries or upsets, and maybe walking away from it, or just thinking you weren't good?
Oh yeah, I think there always is. And I think that's when you learn. There was loads of times where I just thought, I wasn't tough enough, I couldn't do what it takes. Sorry, something's just come up on my screen, don't know what that is. And I just thought, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. And lost races that I should have done, but I now look back, and it's very easy, isn't it, in hindsight? But that was how I learned. That was how I sort of worked out that I was hungry. I really wanted it, and this wasn't quite right. What do I need to put in place, and not to dwell on things, and to move on. And I think it's, sport has taught me a lot, really. I'm sort of one of these people, I probably get really annoying, but I'm sort of there's always things happen for a reason. And and things, these things that are hard in our life, it is about learning from them and growing and becoming a better person at the end of it. And I think that's what sport has taught me, for sure.
Amazing. Sally, there was one thing that when we were having a discussion, and it surprised me. The one thing that you said to me that took me back a little bit was around criticism, because I get that, and I know the people that are in the limelight get that. But in my head, I'm looking and going, how can somebody criticize somebody who's achieved what you do? You mind your own business. You don't go around creating any pain in anyone's life. But you actually talked about experiencing haters and people turning on you. Talk to me about that, because that for me was a bit of a shock. I just didn't experience that.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it's part and parcel of it, and if you're not that type of person, I think probably part of my thing is I was almost too nice, and I had to learn to go into this sort of character almost, which probably wasn't me at times. But the thing is that I think where I went with it is that people often say things because they're jealous of what you do and what you got, and I noticed it more that the better I got, you know, your true friends sort of came out, and you lost a lot on the way because they couldn't deal with your success and how you've been, and I just looked at it as, you know, it wasn't that they hated me or anything like that. It was just, yeah, they were just, you know, jealous of what you do almost, and they couldn't deal with it almost. And I think that's, you know, something else that I've sort of taken with me. You know, I think sometimes criticism is about that more than anything. And I think sometimes you have to work out what's right and what's learned, but there's criticism in a way where you grow and you learn from it. And that's one thing, but there's criticism of, you know, that's not needed and that's not right, and that's when you learn who's in your corner and who's not really. That's how I worked it out.
Yeah. Who inspired you on your journey? What made you want to do what you're doing? Where did it start?
I guess, you know, watching the Olympics on telly, you know, having massive role models when I was growing up, Daley Thompson and Ed Moses, and I always think, you know, role models are brilliant. And, you know, even now, you know, there's some amazing women that I come across within organizations, and you know, and I think it's always important to have role models or people that you look up and to aspire. And it doesn't mean that, you know, I don't know, it keeps your feet back on the ground, and things like that. And I think we can always learn, we can always carry on learning. So yeah, I just had some really good people that, you know, and then my coach was an amazing, he picked me up when I was 14. So, you know, he was very inspiring. He had a great group of athletes that you know, at 14, I learned so much from them. So it's just some really good, my parents were really good at supporting me, taking me to the meetings and stuff like that. So just very lucky to have some great people around us. So, and understanding, you know, school teachers and things like that, really, and employers and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I wanted it, you know, I was hungry, and I look back and I look at some of the begging letters that I used to write to companies, and, you know, the time I took off and bits and pieces. I was, you know, I wanted it, and it was, yeah, it's quite scary when I look back now at how determined I was at sort of, you know, 15, 16, 17, 18, that sort of age.
Where did that come from, that determination? Was that from the family home?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, really. I mean, my dad was a farmer, so there was a lot of, you know, work hard ethic was going on, and I think that was, you know, really interesting. And yeah, and he, you know, and he was a great role model to be around. But I think, you know, I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? I think it's you're born with a little bit of that, but I think it's your life and the way you're nurtured and where you go with it as well. So yeah, it's a combination.
What are you doing now? Because one of the questions what somebody wanted me to ask was, you see with some athletes who reach the absolute highest level like you have yourself, and then once they retire, they actually struggle with that, and some even get mental health issues. How did you deal with that transition of the point where you thought, right, it's time to retire? What was your approach to that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, you know, working out the day, well, you know, you're only like 30 when you're trying to retire from all you know in life. And it is tough. But I think I spent sort of 2 years trying to work out what I wanted to do next. And I think, you know, we lined up, you know, some new challenges, some new goals, and around work and having kids and family and stuff like that. And I think once I'd started to allow myself to think that, I think, sometimes the athletics didn't go quite so well. I had lots of injuries and niggles towards them. I think that hunger sort of, had gone almost, because I had achieved so much and I was finding it hard to re-go again. So I knew in my mind that it was the right time. And I think, I again, I have some great people around me, and I think it's about being very thankful for what I had achieved. And I knew I would never get those highs again. You're never going to have that feeling of standing on the rostrum, so don't go and try and find it almost. And I think having kids straight away sort of helped as well. I think that, you have to learn to care for somebody else, and it's not always about you, because sport, you have to be quite selfish at times. And I think, having kids, it makes you've got to care about other people and stuff like that. So I think I learned a big lesson from that. But yeah, it takes a while to adapt. I mean, my husband missed it more than I, because it was the structure. But I guess we just had to find new structure in your life and new goals, and and go again, really, and be inspired by other things. But no, you're never going to have, very lucky to have achieved that high.
Yeah. Your children, how old are they, Sally?
The eldest is 23, 20 and 16. So three boys.
Have you pushed them that way into...
No, I'd like to think we haven't pushed them. I mean, they're all sporty, naturally. My husband coaches elite athletes, so, they've been surrounded by them. The eldest did run, and then a couple of years ago, he decided that he could never be where he wanted to be, so he's now a personal trainer. The middle one, who absolutely hated who his mum was, hated the pressure, hated everything about it. 2 years ago, decided that he wanted to have a go, and now he's down in South Africa, living the dream with the athletes, and loving it. Who knows? But he's loving it and very happy, and learning some good life skills, if nothing else. And then the younger one loves his football, so he loves his football and talks a good game.
Yeah, love that. The word in the background of me, the word discipline. It's what I teach. I believe it's mega important in success. What does the word mean to you?
Discipline to me is about, it's having discipline within your life. So I think it's having good structure within your life, and you can go and enjoy it a little bit, but it's about working hard. It's about being, it's not about working all hours, but discipline is about working right. I've allocated myself 2 hours here, and it's about working smart almost. I mean, that's what I think, one of the things that I've learned, because you can sit there all day and you can work, but have you got anything done? So it's about being productive. It's about being disciplined when you need to be. It's about those sorts of things and the quality of it. So putting that quality in place almost. Yeah,
I love that. What sacrifices did you need to make to get to the highest level?
I mean, it was tough. A lot of my friends gave up running when they were sort of 17, 18 because of boyfriends and clubs and whatever else. And, I used to go occasionally, but I gave up a whole, childhood almost, and that sort of age at 16, 17 and going out and things like that. It's still interesting now when you talk to my friends and they all go, well, you probably didn't go and do that, did you, at your age? So there was a lot of sacrifices. Probably the hardest bit was in my, from sort of like 16 to sort of 20, something like that. But then, I had weekends away, and we used to have, great parties and camaraderies at the end of you're racing, and then there'd always be some sort of event, and it was always very social. So I think that sort of fulfilled that sort of side of it. But yeah, there was many a wedding, many a family do that was missed. But then at the same time, I retired at 30, and and can still appreciate it and can still join in. So I don't feel it was worth the sacrifice. I don't feel like I missed out on on too much.
That's good. Obviously, someone in your role, you have to have ego in order to want to be better than other people. How do you manage that? So how do you manage that not taking over in other areas of your life, that looking at other people and going, I'm better than you? Because there has to be an element of of having that to strive and to be able to beat them, I'm guessing.
Yeah, there is, but it's about not shouting about it. The thing I've noticed is the amount of people that shout about it and then they don't deliver at the end of the day. And I think that's almost because you're not confident in yourself, that ego has to ooze out. You know, sometimes I think what makes you have to do that, I think it's about being, you know, keeping that ego within you and knowing that it's right. You know, I did talk about going into, sometimes I had to, you know, go into a different character because probably I wasn't tough enough at times, but I had to go into this sort of certain character to show that it was more confidence than ego, I think. And that was about not letting other people get to you, you know, because that's how they try to win a race, was they would come and psych you out, they'd try and get in your head and in your face, and I used to just be able to learn to turn that around and says, you know, you're doing this because you know I'm the one that's in shape, you know, and you know that I'm the one to worry about. And if that's, you know, if that's your way of winning, then fine, carry on. But it's about how you win on the track and at that end result almost. So yeah, you see a lot of people that strut around and their ego's over there, but I think sometimes if you've got too much ego, it's almost a lack of confidence, and that's your only way of doing it. It has to come from within.
Did you ever use any techniques like that yourself to create doubt in your competitors?
Yeah, I mean, that's that whole you know, your whole mind game is about feeding yourself your confidence, and that, you know, sometimes comes from, I don't know, someone jumping around and doing too many strides in the warm-up area, and you go, oh, she's going to be exhausted by the time she gets in, to one of my competitors hitting a hurdle before she went in. You know, that's another bit of confidence. So it's about, you know, that's not me going up and telling her, God, that knee's going to be sore or whatever. That's just about me fueling your own confidence. And I think, you know, and that's what it needs to be. You know, it's about blocking out those negatives and fueling your own confidence and your own ego as such.
Love that. Got a couple of questions to finish off with. Anyone watching this now who's maybe's got a goal themselves, they want to be world level, they want to achieve the kind of things that you have, what would you tell them is the key things that they need to be doing? So if this is some young kid now, 10, 12, 15, they've got these great goals, what would you tell them the key things that they need to do in order to reach the highest level?
I think it's about, work hard. I think it's about your discipline piece. I think it's about enjoyment, because I think if you don't enjoy what you're doing, I think it's really hard to have those results. And I'd say that's one of the biggest things, is they've got to have fun, they've got to enjoy it. It's got to be a, you know, not a chore. It's got to just come naturally, and you don't want to be anywhere else. This is what I want to be doing in life. And I think that's really, really key. And I would say always believe in yourself and believe in where you want to go, to how important to have that vision. And rather than just rock up each day, it's about, you know, and don't let anybody knock you from having that vision, because who knows, you know, you can go on to achieve so much.
Is it harder now for people, because of social media being a lot bigger than what it was, for people taking that criticism, being more haters? And how does somebody deal with that? That's maybe comparing and going, you probably didn't have as much of that to deal with as what I have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a totally different world now. You know, it's but you know, the thing I used to always learn, you know, when newspapers used to write things or whatever, it's the thing that I always said, if people say something, it's you know, yesterday's fish and chip paper. You know, it's forgotten, and that's how you have to look at it. It's just, you know, if you took everything personally and things like that, then it would be, it's really, really hard. And you know, that's what social media is, but it's, you know, it's something's out the next day. And I think that's where you go with it now. You know, I still get people writing things on social media still, but you just don't take it to heart. And it takes, you know, it takes a long time. I think the hardest bit is when it affects your family. And I know when, you know, newspapers and things, and it affects your family and you know them, but you know, it's almost, they have to learn that lesson, and it's a tough one. and you have to learn it. And the more it happens to you, the tougher you get, and
Yeah.
the smaller it gets almost. You know, when it first happens, it's hard, but you have to learn to put it in the right place, because you'd never move on, and you know, to the point where it means don't reading it, or you know, not making it too much part of your life. But yeah, sometimes we just laugh a bit and move on, and I've just learned to get, you know, quite thick-skinned, I think, as you get older.
Yeah, I think you have to be, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's the most inspirational person that you've ever met, and why?
Wow. Gosh, probably Ed Moses. So Ed Moses was the world record holder in the men's 400-meter hurdles, and he won over 100 races. And I know how hard that is to deliver day in, day out, because sometimes you just don't feel right and you're not good, you know, you're not in the right mindset or whatever. But so for him to win over 100 races, and he was a very knowledgeable guy and a very technical sort of brain to his hurdles, and I just, yeah, massive inspiration, and just loved listening to me. He had this American, you know, drawl, and it was just, yeah, very calming voice as well, a bit like Michael Johnson almost. It was that sort of feel to it. But yeah, he was amazing.
Sally, last question, one that I always like to finish off on. We're at a funeral, we're fast forwarding now, and it's at your actual funeral. What do you want people to say about you?
God, you could have given me a bit of notice on that one. I think my motto has always is to be the best version that you can be as a person, and that's all that we ask of you. And I think it's about, I always used to say, that's how I dealt with the nerves. It was about, you can only ever go and do your best, and if you know that you've given yourself that opportunity, then that is your best. And whether you win or you're second, you're third, or whatever, but I gave myself my best shot. So yeah, be your best. That's what I say. Be the best version that you can be.
That's exactly what my dad taught me. He said, if as long as you try your best, no one can ask any more of you.
Exactly.
Sally, where can people find you? So we'll put some links and stuff like that. If people, the first time that they've watched this interview of you, our audience, especially on the YouTube channel, we get a lot of people from Canada, Australia, America. Where can they follow you?
Yeah, I'm just under all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, under Sally Gunnell. And yeah, I've got websites as well, so you can see all the work I'm doing.
And what's the website? What is that just under your name as well?
Yeah, just Sally Gunnell. You'll get to it.com. Oh. You're there.
Sally, that was an absolute pleasure to have you on this interview. Amazing what you've done. Always been inspirational. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.